The next thing that is vital in taking charge of your own destiny is you must begin setting high standards for yourself. Demand more from yourself than anyone else could possibly ever expect out of you. When everyone else is taking a lunch, you're hustling. You're going the extra mile. You're putting more time in. I remember reading John F. Kennedy's Profiles in Courage. He said, human beings get what they must. Meaning, we only get what we have to have in life, no more and no less. If it's not a standard for you, if you're not committed to it with that much intensity, it's not going to happen for you. So you must go from being interested in something to actually being committed. That's when you raise your standard and you decide that you deserve more than you are currently representing in your life. Because here's the reality. When you are interested in something, you do it when it's convenient. But when you are committed, you do it regardless. I'm saying aim higher. I'm saying aim for the best. Expect the best out of your life. Mortimer Adler, one of the great philosophers of the last century, said if we don't strive for the high things of life, we will settle for the low. And frankly, most people have settled for the low. Most people don't aim too high and miss. They aim too low and hit. So take responsibility for your life. Step up. Step up. Take responsibility in every aspect of your life. Take responsibility for your sadness. Take responsibility for your discouragement. And take responsibility for your happiness. Take responsibility for your performance. Because if you're not responsible for every aspect of your life, then who is? And if it's anyone but you, then you're not in charge. Set a high standard for yourself. Begin expecting more out of yourself. Stop looking for success out there and look for success within you. And you will begin to attract the success as you begin and continue working on yourself, developing yourself. I remember learning this principle of setting a high standard, of deciding that you get what you must have. I remember being very discouraged when I was just a young boy. I remember watching my older brother read books. He went through, I think by the age of 11, throughout all the Hardy Boys books and all the Nancy Drew books. And I thought that was amazing because every day when we'd go to bed, he'd read for a little bit and then the light would go off. And then I would say, Steve, tell me what you read. Share a story with me. And he would share a cool story with me. And I thought, you know what? I want to learn to read too. And so I went to my mother and I said, Mom, would you buy me a book? She says, you bet. I'll buy you your first one. And then every book you read after that, I'll buy you a new one. Once you read the book, I'll buy you a new one. I thought, all right, I'm going to read. And I couldn't wait to go to the bookstore the first time and pick out the first book. And I didn't want to be just like Steve, so I didn't want to get Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew. So I got something close to it. I got the Bobbsey Twins. And I still have the book today. But I remembered as I started reading the book, I got very discouraged because I couldn't get through the first page. I couldn't understand what the first page was saying. I was too slow. I couldn't comprehend. And I remember putting the book down and deciding that I must not be a reader. And I remember in fourth grade, they used to pull me out and take me over to social studies and read. They'd take me to a special reading class up on the fourth floor of the school that I was at. And they would take me and put me in these small chairs and a small desk, and they would have us read these cartoon books. And then we'd have to take a comprehension test after we read the cartoon book. And I hated it. First of all, I didn't want to miss social studies. That's where the real interesting stuff was going on. And second of all, I never liked cartoons. And I remember that discouraged me even more. And from one experience to another, I decided I must not be a reader. And I decided I'm not going to read. And I didn't touch a book for a number of years. And then I remember I was 15 years old and I was walking in my dad's bedroom. And I remember this particular day I was walking in his bedroom and I noticed a tape on his dresser. And I grabbed the tape. And I looked at the tape. And on the tape, it was a copy tape. And the title on one side was handwritten that said, The Day My Life Turned Around, and on the other side it said, How to Live Financially Independent. And at 15 years old, those two titles intrigued me. So I picked the tape up, I put it in my pocket, I left the bedroom, I went up to my bedroom, I pulled out my Walkman, and I put the tape in, and I started to listen to it. And boy, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was amazed by the principles, the concepts that I had no idea of prior to that tape. And that particular month, when I laid down at bed at night, I listened to that tape at least 20 times that first 30 days, that first month. I listened to that tape over and over and over. And one of the principles that I learned was that if you want your life to be better, you must become better. That you must step up and take charge. That you can't wait for your spouse to change. You can't wait for your job to change. You can't wait for the government's policies to change before you change. You have to change. That if you will change, your world will change. And I thought to myself, he's right. That I have to take responsibility for not reading. I realize that I have become the victim of that habit. I have become the victim of that circumstance rather than rising above it, rather than stepping up and doing something about it. And so after listening to that tape, I decided that I was going to begin reading. And that tape by Jim Rohn led me to another tape, and another tape, and another tape. And then eventually that led me to buy my first book. And by my junior year, I read my first book. It took me almost a year to read it. And then my senior year, I read another book. And that book led me to another book, and another book, and another book. And knowing where I came from to where I am today, I can proudly and confidently say that I read a minimum of one book a week. That I have made it a goal, I've made it a priority in my life to read. And I enjoy it immensely. It did not come easy, but I had realized that if I was going to have more, I had to become more. See, all we can do is be the best that we can. And the neat thing is, there's always another level. See, when you look at a tree and you say, how tall will that tree grow? A tree will grow as tall as it will grow, and it'll stop. The neat thing about humans is we will grow and grow and grow. And when we reach that level, there's another level, and we never stop growing. In fact, if you're not growing, you're rotting, as Ray Kroc once said. I remember watching an interview of Chrissy Everett, who was one of the best tennis players to ever play the game, and she was getting ready to play a young gal, 17-year-old, that had just come off the Futures Tour. And the reporters came to her and said, how do you get motivated to play in this tournament? Here you are about to play someone that just come off the Futures Tour, who's only 17 years old and ranked 175. And here you are ranked number 1. How do you get motivated to play that person? And she says, oh, you have it all wrong. She says, I'm not playing against her. I'm playing against my own best self. Become the best that you can possibly become. Take responsibility. Be the victor in your life, not the victim of your life. There's once a story told about a builder who did a very good job at building, and he built a lot of homes over the years, and he did great work. And he was reaching the age of retirement, and he decided he wanted to retire. But just as he wanted to retire, his boss came back to him and says, hey, before you retire, would you build one more home for me? He says, okay, I'll do it. He accepted the job, but his heart was not involved. And he began working, and he began using materials that were inferior. He began using incapable workers. And he began using poor lumber. Eventually, the house was done. When the house was complete, his boss came to him and said, thank you for building the house. Here is the keys. It's a present from me. Thanks for all the years you've worked with me. At that moment, you can imagine how he felt. At that moment, he regretted that he had not given the best that he possibly could. The truth is, all the rewards of value in life come when a person has raised their standard. When a person had given more than what they thought they had capability to give. When they had gone the second mile. So I say give more than what you're paid for. Most people will do just enough to get by, and that's it. But you know what? When you give less than your best, it makes a statement about you. It affects your psyche. It begins to damage you psychologically. I wrote in my book that the most pervasive disease in the world is mediocrity. See, when you get into the habit of doing less than your best, it will begin to reflect itself in your personality, and it will begin to damage you. Set high standards for yourself. Demand more from yourself than anyone else could possibly expect out of you. Push yourself. Be the best that you can possibly be at all times, whether people are looking or not. Podcast listeners, thanks for listening. You've taken time out of your schedule, and I really appreciate it. Now do me a favor. If you like what you heard, star it. Thanks. Now go unleash your greatness within.
GreatnessWithin.com